everyone. Welcome to Halva for the Heart. My name is Misha. I am an Iranian American death doula and grief tender. And today's episode will be all about the ancient Iranian holiday of Mehregan that's happening right now. But before we get into that, I just wanted to let you all know that I will be co-facilitating a Palestine grief circle this Friday or Saturday, depending on where you are in the world, with my friend Shivani. You may remember Shivani from a previous episode I did with them. We had a beautiful conversation about grief and ancestors. And after we recorded that episode, we were chatting, and I thought it would be wonderful to host something together, an offering for the public. And that's how this Palestine Grief Circle was born. We'll be spending an hour and a half together this Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific, or if you're on my side of the world here in Korea, it'll be at 9 a.m. on Saturday morning. And I just invite you guys to bring your grief. It will be 2 years since this escalation of genocide against the Palestinian people in Gaza. And I know for myself, I need space to really mourn with others about the immense loss of life and the horrors we've been witnessing, as well as the fact that nothing we've tried to do so far has worked in stopping this genocide. There's a lot to grieve around that. So for this event, Shivani and I will be leading people through meditation around the kafia and the symbolism of the kafia, and especially the fact that it's a cloth made out of threads, and how we can each be like a thread and weave together and be a strong symbol of resistance. This event is by donation. We're asking folks to donate to a grassroots organization on the ground in Gaza called Gaza's Roots. And you don't need to prove a donation necessarily, but we hope that you donate as much as you can. And then sign up. I'll include the link in the show notes. And I hope you join us. I think it's really interesting that October 7th, the 2 years since the escalation of the genocide, falls in the holiday of Mehregan. Mehregan, depending on what calendar you use, began either on October 2nd or will begin October 8th, and it lasts for 6 days. And this holiday, Mehregan, is all about justice. Justice, sacred contracts, truth, light, and friendship, and the hope of what the sun itself symbolizes, right? Sunshine and light, and really like a dawn after a dark, dark time. So for me, marking that October 7th and holding this Palestine Grief Circle is one way that I am celebrating Mehregan, honoring Mehregan and what it stands for. But I'll go into a bit more about what this holiday is and how you can honor it in your own way today. So, what is Mehregan? Mehregan is an ancient Iranian holiday. It actually predates Zoroastrianism, but it's now widely considered a Zoroastrian holiday, which is an indigenous religion to Iran. Mehregan is one of the name day holidays in Zoroastrianism, meaning every month in the calendar, the Zoroastrian calendar, is named after an entity, a spirit, a deity, and also every day of the month has a name. not like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but like the first, the second, the third, instead of just being numbered, they actually have names. And so when the name of the month and the name of the day match, that's a holiday. So in the Mehr month, we are in the month of Mehr right now in the Iranian calendar. And on the Mehr day, when they coincide, that's the first day of Mehregan. And this happens in every month of the Iranian calendar. So what is Mehr and what does it symbolize? Mehr is the modern day name of the ancient Iranian sun god Mithra. Mithra was one of the pre-Zoroastrian deities in Iran. He was a symbol of the sun and also was the god who is the protector of contracts, of friendship, of truth, of justice. In Zoroastrianism, he is one of the three gods who judges people upon their death. He is considered all-seeing, all-hearing, all-knowing, and able to, with all that information, to judge people. Mehr is also the root word, if you know Persian, the root of the word mehreban, and mehreban means kind or gracious or compassionate. And so I like that there's this masculinity to this judgment and justice and contracts. And there's also this femininity as well, this softness, this kindness, friendship, love. This holiday encompasses both. It's also more practically a harvest festival, right? This is the season where the Iranians would be harvesting their crops. And so to celebrate Mehregan is often a feast holiday, and it's a holiday that you would share your crops in abundance with others in your community. Many of the Zoroastrian holidays are about sharing. And I just think that's so beautiful and something we can really tap into and remember. The supposed origin of Mehregan is told in the book the Shahnameh, which is the Iranian ancient book of like the origin story of the Iranian people and goes through like the line of the kings. It's the story of us as a people over generations and generations and millennia. And in that book, in the Shahnameh, it's an epic. I don't know how many pages it is. It is several hundred, maybe over 1,000 pages. There's the story of how Mehregan got started, supposedly. It doesn't include Mithra. It is a different sort of origin story. And so I'll share that story now. The story of Mehregan begins with Zahhak. Zahhak is an evil ruler that ruled Iran for 1,000 years. When he was young, he was corrupted by the devil and basically sold his soul to the devil, right? And the devil kissed his shoulders. And from Zahhak's shoulders grew two snakes. And the devil told him, "You will be king, but you have to feed these snakes the brains of young men every day, or else they'll turn on you." And so every day of Zahhak's rule, he ordered his men to go find young men to bring to him and to slaughter, and so he could feed the brains to his snakes. And this happened for centuries until one day, Kaveh, this man named Kaveh, who had lost two of his sons to Zahhak snakes, rose up. And it was in his like intense, deep grief and rage over the injustice of his sons being taken from him that he decided to take a stand against the ruler that people thought was unstoppable. The story is that he was a blacksmith and he had a leather apron. And this apron he put on top of the end of a long stick, and it became this symbol of resistance, this flag, this banner of resistance. And with this flag, he called upon Fereydoon to lead the people. So it's kind of an interesting. When I read the story today, it's interesting that Kaveh is the instigator of the uprising, but he's not the leader. He's the one who's deep in his grief and just needs something to happen. But he knows he's not a soldier. He's a blacksmith. He knows he doesn't have the skills necessary to lead troops into battle. But he is able to create this symbol, this flag, that inspires people to join their cause. So anyway, he calls upon Fereydoon, who is a kind of a chosen soldier. And actually, when prophesies that Fereydoon would one day defeat Zahhak. So Zahhak kind of knows that this is coming. And he does everything he can to stop it, but in the end, it's not enough. So Fereydoon heeds the call of Kaveh and announces to the people that we will be fighting Zahhak. And there is a epic battle between Fereydoon's troops and Zahhak's troops. And in the end, Zahhak is defeated, but an angel comes down and tells Fereydoon, you are not meant to kill Zahhak. You are meant to punish him. And so what Fereydoon does is that he chains him to this cave in the base of Mount Damavand, which is one of the tallest mountain in Iran and the sacred mountain in Iranian mythology. And the story is that Zahhak is still there today. And afterwards, Fereydoon then takes over the crown and becomes king of Iran. And it is decreed that that day when Zahhak is defeated will be known as Mehregan, as like the day of justice. And every year since then, according to the story, Mehregan has been celebrated. So how can you celebrate Mehregan? One of the first ways, which is common with most Iranian holidays, if not all, is to make a sofreh. A sofreh is, it could be interpreted as a sort of altar, but it's a spread. The term sofreh can be used either as like an altar or a spread for a holiday or a wedding, but it's also uses the term for like a tablecloth thrown on the floor. So not a tablecloth, but a floor cloth where the meal is set. And so it's an altar cloth, but it's less I don't want to say it's less sacred. It's just more like every day in you interact with it. It's meant to be interacted with. So the sofreh for Mehregan is traditionally purple. And as with many other holidays, you would include a mirror on the sofreh, candles, the text, a book of a sacred text. You can pick whatever kind of spiritual book works for you. And for the season, since it's a harvest holiday, there would be fruits like pomegranates and quince and persimmons, apples, the sort of like autumn fruit, and then other seasonal harvests like squash and root vegetables. And then, of course, there's always ajil on a sofreh, which is like the traditional Iranian mixed nuts and dried fruit, which is meant to bring good luck, and Persian sweets. So a nok is often a common one, if you know what that is. And again, to bring like sweetness and prosperity. And all these things have different meanings behind them. There's often rose water. And it's just a nice, I've made mine. I made mine yesterday. It's nice to create a seasonal altar, a seasonal spread. Even if you're not celebrating Mehregan in particular, just to make a seasonal spread or altar in the center of your home that you can add fresh things to throughout the year and really reflect on how the earth is changing throughout the seasons. It's been really nice for me to really set the tone for the season that we're in, especially now as the weather is starting to cool and the sun is setting earlier and earlier. It's nice to have a sort of like decorative centerpiece altar that reflects that and makes me pause and notice what the earth is doing, even while I'm inside and living in a big city. It's also nice because Mehregan is dedicated to Mithra, the sun god, and it's interesting this holiday is after the autumn equinox, though I did my research and I found out that this holiday, traditionally pre-Zoroastrianism, was actually aligned with the autumn equinox, the same way that Nowruz is aligned with the spring equinox. But over the years, it was shifted and shifted, so now it falls after the autumn equinox. And so how do we continue to bask in the sunshine when the days are getting shorter? And really, it kind of shifts the way you interact with the sun, because now I'm more and more grateful for the sunshine that is there. I'm holding on desperately to that sunshine and that warmth, knowing that we're just at the very beginning of the dark season, the cold season, knowing that it's going to get much darker and much colder before it gets warm again. And if that is not a metaphor for the current state of the world, I don't know what is. And that, I guess, leads me to how this holiday relates to social justice and activism and combating fascism. I mean, it's pretty clear from the story of Kaveh and Fereydoon and their defeat of Zahhak how this holiday would really symbolize fighting against authoritarianism and tyranny. And it also with what Mithra symbolizes in his protection of justice and covenants and truth, that this holiday would be a wonderful way to tap back into our ancestral wisdom around how do we fight injustice. I mentioned this earlier, but I really think Kaveh is a beautiful example of how we, as people, as everyday people, can really make an impact. And that we don't have to be the leaders, that we can do our part. We can make art or banners the way that he made his flag. We can make connections and seek out leadership. We can tap into our grief the way he did when his sons died, as a way to ignite our courage and also to make relationships and solidarity with other folks who are also in pain and grief, and to build those strong connections of allyship, because it's relationship and connection that will strengthen us, right? On our own, we're not strong enough to defeat these things, but together. And that's what relationship's all about. So that's what we can learn from Kaveh. And from Fereydoon, he symbolizes righteous leadership, right? He's not interested in power. He's interested in justice and serving the people. He's also, I think, important to note, not chosen by bloodline. When we hear calls for, especially in the Iranian spaces, call for a return to monarchy, Fereydoon symbolizes the fact that, like, monarchy won't save us. That it's people who are just and righteous and sovereign who will lead us to a liberated future. And then with Mitra, we, tap into that once again, the strength of masculinity, of being all hearing and all seeing and making judgments based in values and morals, and also having that softness and compassion, and hearing and listening deeply to the voices of people who are marginalized, who are impacted by injustice, and listening to them and their stories, and also protecting what is true. I'm thinking about all the misinformation and propaganda that we're seeing in the media today, and how Mitra is so focused on light and truth and justice, and that we can do our part to protect truth when we see misinformation online or hear falsehoods or propaganda in our communities. And also, I think it's important to remember that he is the protector of covenants, and that just as we make promises to each other to uphold those, to remember that our representatives and our governments made promises to us as constituents, and to hold our governments and institutions accountable for what they claim to hold as values, and to speak up when they're not. So those are some ways that I'm thinking about how this holiday can really guide us in our social justice work. I think one of the most interesting things about the story in the Shahnameh about Kaveh and Fereydoon and Zahhak is that after Zahhak is defeated and after Fereydoon is crowned king, Fereydoon tells the people, I'll read this quote from him from the book, the translation of the book. He says, he's speaking to his troops after they've defeated Zahhak. He says, "You are wise and honored men. It is not right for you to wield weapons and ride out to war, just as soldiers should not be craftsmen. Each group should follow its own calling, for if they take on one another's roles, the earth becomes filled with confusion. The vile tyrant has been captured, and the earth is cleansed of his power. Return in peace to your former occupations, and may you live in love and happiness." I've been thinking a lot about this, how I, as someone who wants to fight authoritarianism, may need to start learning skills that I don't necessarily feel like are my calling to learn. Potentially self-defense or combat, or um, yeah, just putting my life on the line, my physical body on the line in a way that, like, I don't necessarily feel comfortable doing. It doesn't feel like something that I am called to do if it weren't an emergency, if it weren't absolutely necessary. And also to remember when it's over that we don't have to remain these resistance fighters. That, like, it's important in the moment, but it's not who we have to be forever and always. And that we each have a role to play. Once the battle has been won, we each have a role to play and to return to. And so to think about, like, what's my role now as fascism is here and rising? And what will my role be afterwards? To me, as a death doula, I think death work is activism work. It is explicitly anti-institution in the way that it pushes back against the medical industrial complex and the healthcare, health insurance industries. And also thinking about how we can tap into our collective grief to fuel our fight for justice. So that's one way I see my role in this moment. And also, I understand that that's a position of privilege, and that I may need to do more than that to protect people who desperately need to be protected against tyranny. I'm still navigating it. I think we all are. But those are the things I've been thinking about. So I invite you this week to take some time and maybe make your own sofreh and reflect on the themes of Mehregan. If you have your own copy of the Shahnameh, or I'm sure you can find maybe a version of the story online, read the story of Kaveh and Fereydoon defeating Zahhak. I did it last night. We just sat on the couch together reading the story to each other. It's meant to be shared orally. That's traditionally how the story is told. And so tap into that. And also share a meal of abundance with the harvest, fruits and vegetables, and with your community, your friends and family. Offer gratitude to each other. And also remember that you can take this beyond your circle of friends and family. Maybe you want to make a communal sofreh or have a communal feast, inviting folks to share a meal together, especially people maybe of different backgrounds, different faiths, different generations. It'd be wonderful to have a space to initiate conversations with elders and asking them about stories from their own families or lineage or heritage about courage and justice and fighting for truth and kindness. So, those are just some ideas I have for you. If you would like to go deeper into Mehregan and explore journal prompts and different meditations or embodiment practices, and really sit with the themes of the holiday more deeply over the course of the 6-day holiday, I invite you to download the Mehregan guidebook that I've put together for you. It's linked in the show notes, and it's available on a sliding scale from $3 to $33, whatever you're comfortable with. Recommended $12 to $15 if you're able. It is 39 pages. I spent many, many hours on this guidebook. There's also a list of further reading books and different blogs and websites that you can explore more deeply if you'd like to know more, included in the guidebook. Again, remember that you are invited to join our Palestine Grief Circle this Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific or 9 a.m. Saturday, Korea time. And I hope you have a blessed Mehregan. I hope that this holiday is full of abundance and warmth and gratitude. And I also hope it sparks the fire and the sun in you to find a way to not only speak out for justice, but also to lead with kindness when you do, and to really hold on to the compassion you have for others who are suffering and have that be your guiding light in your activism. If you'd like to talk with other Iranians who are finding ways to celebrate Mehregan in their modern life, we will be talking about Mehregan together in our Dar de Del call on Thursday evening, Friday morning if you're on my side of the world. And it's just time for us to really meditate together and tap into the themes of Mehregan. And then we spent about an hour just talking and sharing ideas and really finding community with one another. You know, it's so hard in the Iranian diaspora to find other Iranians who are for collective liberation. It's sad, but it's true. And so we've made our own little group and we gather and really support each other and share our knowledge with each other. And you're more than welcome to join us. So I'll include the link to join Dadadel as well. That's also sliding scale $11 to $44 a month. And we have 3 sessions a month that you could join. And this guidebook, the Mehregan guidebook, and all future guidebooks are available to Dadadel members for free. It's included in the membership price, so you don't need to purchase it separately. And that's my gift to our members, our community. And we also have a group chat to stay in touch between calls. And it's really just a beautiful space after every call. I just feel so nourished, so just inspired by the wisdom and the future of what it means to be Iranian diaspora. If you're not in our Dal, that's totally fine. No pressure. But if you're not and you're not able to come to the session, I would love to hear if and how you are celebrating Mehregan. Maybe you have young kids and ways that you're trying to celebrate with them. You can send me an email at misha@hafizdeathcare.com. You can send me a voice note, a 90-second voice note through SpeakPipe. My link is voicenote.hafizdeathcare.com, and that's linked below. You can also send me a message on Instagram. I'm at hafiz.death.care. And of course, follow and subscribe to this podcast. Leave a rating, a review, a comment if you're able, and share it with other Iranians that you know in your community who may want to be celebrating this holiday in a way that is not glorifying the monarchy, which is often how Iranian holidays in diaspora are kind of marketed and shared. So we're making our own way. This is us finding ways to reconnect with ancestral traditions and wisdom in a way that isn't propaganda. And that's what we're doing. We're reclaiming. Thank you so much for listening. I really hope I hear from you. And our next episode will be an interview with someone I've been admiring for years. Their name is Yara Magdalena, and I cannot wait to share that interview. So yeah, make sure you subscribe or follow this so you get notified when that interview comes out. Thanks. Bye.